Yo, yeah, so let's talk about it. Divine masculinity. I think that most people are familiar with the idea of the divine feminine. I think the most collective idea of that is represented in things like the Holy Grail in Western culture or the Virgin Mary, likewise to portray the innocence of the feminine. But here in Western culture, we don't have a lot of representation for the divine feminine, at least if you're going through the Judeo-Christian lens. And the images we do have, such as with Mary, Christ's mother, they only really entail the subtle and shall we say, virginal aspects of womanhood and femininity rather than its totality. So that creates a bad situation also for our idea of divine masculinity, because we have little to be able to compare it to. Most people, when they think about the security of the divine masculine, we imagine the protection that we would receive from the divine, or the idea that men should strongly and resoundingly protect his environment, and that's what makes him masculine. But that's kind of as much as we have. We have traditions that are handed down from the men of the past, and those traditions are typically what worked the best for men of the past, coagulated and filed down into the easiest way of communicating them, which for many men with their fathers is not much communication at all. So how do we look at divine masculinity knowing that we have little in our religious traditions to be able to compare it to, and therefore figure it out, at least contextually? Well, I think a good solution to this actually has to do with archetypes as presented by people like Carl Jung, the psychologist and psychiatrist, and his students, in particular Marie von Franz, who passed down a lot of the teachings as well. A lot of these teachings are well known in the field, if not actively practiced in most hospitals. The reason I bring them up, and the reason I think they can be used to help describe what divine masculinity can look like in the modern age, is we use the light and dark comparisons that are inherent as archetypes as ways to elucidate and see more clearly what the holy masculine would look like in context. And so when that comes to something like, the original archetypes, which is the innocent and the orphan, which most of us experience in young age, the innocent is often seen as the feminine archetype. And I'm not saying that that's appropriate. I'm just saying that that's how we tend to present it. And so it is good for men to understand how to be a good orphan. How do you do that? Well, first, the thing that makes the orphan from the innocent, that moves the innocent into orphanhood, is being betrayed by the world, or being hurt by the world, and feeling like no one is there for you, and for the first time discovering your aloneness, your individuality in the environment, in the universe. And from there, it is easy to feel resentful, lonely, not supported by people in the world at large. And I think many people get stuck there. Many men get stuck there. That's where you have these kind of trolls that you see on the internet who don't have anything good to say about anything. It's because they were hurt by the world, as many of us are, and resent that, and therefore resent the world. How dare the world do such a thing to me? I will teach the world a lesson by telling it, all the negative thoughts that I have about it. So how do you overcome that? You find your squad. You realize that you're not alone, that other people have been hurt by the world. And rather than responding with resentfulness and inflicting pain on the world for daring to harm us in such a way, you make bonds with others, and you create fellowship, and you create friendship. And out of that, you find strength, real strength with each other, and maybe even as a leader of men. Similarly, you have the bond between the caregiver and the warrior. And I think we all kind of understand from movies, media, stories that we receive, that being a warrior as a man is important. I, of course, encourage martial arts if you get a chance. Reiki really helps as well, too, to be aware of your body and focus on your breath and focus on your chi. However, being a warrior can also inflate to a point of being unhealthy. That's when you have people fighting these righteous causes, even at the cost of their family or their lives, or because people get so caught up in their causes, they forget the damage that they're inflicting on people in trying to make their cause or make their dreams a reality. So finding balance in the warrior is realizing that you need to find causes to fight for. You need to find meaning in your life and defend it and defend who is important to you. But at the same time, it needs to be balanced with caring and giving a damn about the world so that you remember what you're fighting for and you remember compassion as you move gallantly throughout the world. I also think when you come to the seeker and the lover, those two archetypes, I think it's easy for people to fall in love and get caught up in the chemical and emotional responses that brings. But seeking something, particularly truth, or fine-toning a craft, or working on a gift that you've been given and making it even better, that stuff takes determination, and it's not something that gets the immediate feedback of the rush of love chemicals when you do something. Sometimes when you do something for the first time, even if it's something you really want to do or you have a dream of doing, it's not going to be particularly fun the first time unless you make it fun. And that's part of seeking, is the joy of seeking, the joy of finding, and the joy of understanding. And that's necessary for love, because you need to be constantly growing and evolving with any relationship that you're in. And if you don't, it gets stagnant. And when it gets stagnant, there's this impulse from the archetypes to seek a truth, to seek at least a reason that things are stagnant if you care about the person. Seeking is important, understanding is important, and that means, and this is something men with our pride need to understand most of all, is that sometimes seeking truth means you're wrong. It sometimes means using critical thought to go back over the things in your life. Not obsessively so, but at least, like a swift fire over an overgrown forest to get rid of the chaff. And that can apply to a lot of things. That can apply to our thought process, that can apply to our belief system, and that can apply to our information that we get. It is good to go over all of these things, not necessarily with the finest of toothed combs, but at least with analysis and seeking and making sure that you are always seeking the truth and always seeking the best for yourself, so that your loves can be supported. I think that the part that comes next, the ruler, the destroyer and the creator, I think that kind of speaks for itself. I think once you get to that point, you see that men need to create. We need to have something that we're building, and we also need to understand that sometimes in order to build the things that we want and to have the life that we envision, we need to burn or destroy other things. And I think that can happen with friendships. I think that can happen with belief systems. I think that can happen with political parties. I think that the way of the divine masculine when it comes to creation and destruction is that you are doing it with a good heart, and you are doing it out of love and out of having spent the time to seek the truth and taken the time to critically analyze what your actions will be. And that's why going through these steps and going through these part of yourself becomes a reinforcement upon other aspects of your life. I think that when you get to the ruler and the creator, or the ruler and the magician, it is necessary to be able to understand your life as a kingdom and to work for the betterment of that kingdom. And that betterment comes from learning how to create your own reality. And that comes with the chi, with what some would call law of attraction, with some would call goodwill. It comes from that energetic force that you build in yourself and allow to express through yourself in these different forms, in these different behavioral patterns, personality types, archetypical forms of ourselves and our personality. And I think that, the final stages, I am done now, the sage and the fool, it is easy, especially in these times of the information age, to believe like we know everything because we have the entire world's information at the tips of our fingers. But it's also important to understand that we are foolish. And even though we click on something, or just because we think we're right, doesn't necessarily mean we are. And we need to remember that we defecate our pants in old age just like anyone else. And so because of that, it is important that even as you are going through your own growth process for your own well-being and your work and all of that, family relationships, spousal relationships, as you're going through all of that, it's important to remember to allow yourself to be foolish and to take it easy and have a little fun while you're going about your daily routines and cycling through these archetypes as you make an existence for yourself. I think you'll do great. I think that this way of looking at things is a great energetic tone to set with yourself as you understand that you are multifaceted. And to quote one of my favorite Gnostic texts, you should take comfort in its multivariate form. So thanks guys, have a good weekend.